Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? This is Enrique of Spanish United. Today we have a very special guest. We have Shahrooz Ash. Can you please be okay to to introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, of course, Mr. Sanchez. My name is Shahrooz Ash, and I am a Ratu. A Ratu in our tradition means a teacher, educator, and a leader. I am a Zoroastrian, and the Zoroastrian philosophy dates back somewhere around 3,800 years ago, according to most scholars. And the origin of the philosophy or Zarathustra is from today what we call modern day Iran. And Iran back then was quite larger. It extended, I should say, from the borders of China, where Tajikistan is today, to the borders of India, the Indus River, all the way to the Caucasus. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Sanchez.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Very, very interesting history. Yes, I wanted to talk about uh, promoting and exchanging better relations between the Iranian community in general and the Hispanic community. The Hispanic community is one of the largest ethnic groups in the country, and I also wanted to know from your experience, how do you feel the Iranian community can better dialogue with the Hispanic community in terms of civil rights, human rights, and better exchange and dialogue?
Well, let me start by saying that if anybody visits the United Nations building today in New York, you will find a replica of a clay cylinder. It's a round cylinder, perhaps the size of a laptop screen. And that cylinder is famous and is known as the Cyrus Cylinder. The original clay tablet of Cyrus Cylinder is housed at the British Museum in London, England. Now, archaeologists digging in Iraq and Iran found this cylinder, and they deciphered and decoded the cuneiform language, and it has been known and confirmed to be the first declaration of human rights. Now, Cyrus the Great lived around 500 BC, before Christ. He was the founder of the Persian Empire. We know in history it was the first empire that extended from the borders of China, India, all the way to edges of Anatolia, which is today's modern day Turkey, and parts of Greece, and covered Mesopotamia, what's today Syria, Iraq, all the way to North Africa, became the Persian domain for around 250 years. And on that clay tablet, Cyrus the Great claims that after he conquered Babylon, which was the last territory that he conquered, the first was Anatolia. which had attacked the Persians on 2 occasions. And that's when Cyrus decided to march his army into Anatolia to pacify the king of Anatolia. And what had never been seen or heard of in history, and you can claim that we still have not witnessed such behavior from any leader or conqueror in power. After he conquered the king of Anatolia, the tradition was that you would kill your enemy or the leader, but he did not do that. And not only did he not do that, he allowed the king to remain in power, but he did pacify him and ask for his cooperation and harmony within this empire. And in fact, he made him his right-hand man. Then when he marched into Babylon, which was the last part of his military objectives, the Babylonians showed no resistance. Babylon at the time was a tyranny, and the Babylonians welcomed Cyrus the Great without any resistance, including the army. And after he captured the Babylonian king, similar to the first experience, he forgave the Babylonian king. He allowed him to rule over his own nation and people and made him his left-hand man. And on this cylinder, he states that he freed all the people of different nations that were captive by the Babylonians. They were the superpower prior to the Persians. And also he resurrected their gods because they were destroyed by the Babylonians. And he freed all the slaves. In the Iranian tradition, and there's many documents, clay tablets, to show this, according to famous Western historians and archaeologists, the Persians never had slaves and did not believe in slavery. The Persians had equality between genders, men and women. Women earned the same wages as men did. When women were pregnant, they were given time off, not only to give birth to their children, but also to raise them. And we don't see such policies even today in the world, with the exception of some of the Western countries, and they even fall short as to their benevolence towards females. And furthermore, slavery was, as I mentioned, was forbidden in Iran. Another evidence of this is in the Bible, the Old Testament, in the Torah, where in Isaiah, it's mentioned that Cyrus the Great is the anointed of Yahweh. In other words, he is Messiah, which is the savior of the Jews. He's the only non-Jew in the Bible that has been regarded as the savior or Messiah. He freed 70,000 Jews that were captive in Babylon, and they were slaves. And not only did he free them to be able to go back to Jerusalem, he also paid the cost of them returning back to Jerusalem, and he entertained them. There are documents in Hebrew where he had an orchestra, he had soldiers, he had returned item by item what was stolen from them. He returned to them, and the items are itemized in the Old Testament in Ezra, that gold plates, silver plates, everything that was taken from them was righteously and rightfully returned with them to Jerusalem. And Babylon had destroyed the temple in Jerusalem, the same temple that we see today, where Jews go over there to practice their faith. He rebuilt the temple that was destroyed by the Babylonians with the funds coming from the Persian treasury. So when we see that Cyrus the Great and the Persians, their culture and tradition, which is rooted in Zoroastrianism, the tolerance towards other nations, the tolerance towards women, the idea of them not allowing slavery, and for them to be free to worship their religion or their gods had never ever been seen before in the world. You can argue that in most of the world today, we still don't see it. In other words, we haven't even reached that stage that humans were during the Persian Empire 2,500 years ago. We kind of regressed, and it wasn't until the Third Enlightenment revolution with the founding fathers and in France, after overthrowing the Catholic Church, where we see some of those ideals come back. And Jefferson was well aware of Cyrus the Great. There was a Greek historian by the name of Xenophon that has written a book called Cyropedia, The Art of Leadership, and he commends Cyrus for all his actions, his humanity, and his leadership. And where Jefferson essentially knew about Zarathustra because Duperron, a French scholar, had decoded the language, and a copy was present in Europe. And many historians claim that the Third Enlightenment revolution in America and in Europe was influenced by Zoroaster and Cyrus, and including the Bill of Rights, because in our sacred book, the Gathas, it mentions pursuit of happiness, ushta. It mentions faraverane, free will for humans. We don't believe in determinism or tribalism, and liberty. So these ideas are very, very old, and they do have Persian or Zoroastrian roots, Mr. Sanchez.
I'm pretty amazed. I know that, myself as a Jewish person, I know that Cyrus is mentioned in the Torah that he was the Mashiach, the one that was going to liberate the Jews from Babylonian captivity, and he was one of the first rulers in the world, like you said, that promoted a lot of tolerance, and even to this day, before and after the Iranian Revolution, there is still tolerance in Iran. Like there still is a Persian Jewish community. Still, there is still a Christian community. You still have a Zoroastrian community, and each member has a seat in the parliament. So that's something that's really amazing. And I think that is something that I think Iranians can also educate Hispanics on, because Hispanics are not monolithic. Hispanics come from different, countries, racial backgrounds. What unites them as people is that they share a common language, a common heritage, and a common identity. And I think with a lot of the things that you mentioned, they could definitely be implemented, for the Hispanic community to live better and to have better harmonious relationships with people. So I think that is something that I would love to introduce into my organization, because I think those are very good universal concepts for everyone to follow. I really appreciate it. And also, the second question I wanted to ask you was about Zoroastrianism as a whole. So I know that Zoroastrianism is a small religion today, especially in Iran. I know that they're very big in India. They're known as Parsis or Parsis. Do you know of any Zoroastrians that are active in Latin America, or any Zoroastrian, people that are like important scholars or professors in Latin America that you could think of?
Um, so in terms of that, we do have a small population of Zoroastrians in India, like you mentioned, called the Parsis. Their numbers are below 100,000. And the reason they moved to India is because of the conquest of Islam um, over the Persians. When Islam first originated, their armies attacked the Iranian plateau, and they conquered the Iranians, and they were forced to convert to Islam. And a lot of the Iranians were persecuted and murdered. And there was really no choice. You either converted or you died, essentially.
Mm.
So some of the Zoroastrians got on a boat and they fled. The first 2 centuries, it was very horrific experience for the Iranians. So they escaped to India, and the leader of India at the time accepted them as refugees and allowed them to settle in India. So they have been there close to around 13 centuries. In Iran, a small minority of Zoroastrians, some has survived and remained and maintained to keep our flame alive and our philosophy alive, but those numbers are quite small also. However, since about 100 years ago, Zoroastrianism picked up pace in current day Iran, especially with the Pahlavi dynasty, when the Shah of Iran was in Iran before the Islamic Revolution in 1979. It was making a comeback as our indigenous religion in Iran. It's native to Iran, Zoroastrianism. Zoroaster was an Iranian. And today that steam train has picked up speed, and we estimate today that there's around 8 million Zoroastrians in Iran, going from around 120,000 back in the 70s to 8 million now. They're returning back to their indigenous religion by the thousands. So we are happy and excited about that. Also, we are seeing that in Europe and North America, in particular, the non-Iranians are being introduced to Zoroastrianism. To give you an example, in the Scandinavian countries, there's a good movement to where the local Scandinavians are accepting Zoroastrianism by choice to be their philosophy, faith, or religion. And also in North America, in America and Canada, we are seeing that non-Iranians are also accepting Zoroastrianism as their faith and religion. And the estimate is that in North America, there's 120,000 Zoroastrians, and in Europe, close to about 90,000. Now, I was engaged and involved with a Zoroastrian organization for about 20 years called the Zoroastrian Assembly. I have no affiliation with them anymore. But while I was a member, a board member, active board member, and a teacher with that organization, we went to Brazil and we found a Catholic, ex-Catholic priest in Brazil that had contacted us in America and showed his interest, and he converted or chose Zoroastrianism by choice. And we had a relationship with him for about 10 years. And to the best of our knowledge, we did visit Brazil a few times, and he managed to get a good size congregation together of around, we estimate, according to him, 5 to 15,000 Brazilians. But he ran into issues with Christian zealots over there, and he was attacked and beaten, in fact, several times. And eventually his operation kind of dismantled. So in terms of South America, within that Spanish community or Latin community that you pointed, that was one experience we had that I can share with you. And then there is a scholar, Venezuelan scholar by the name of Jose Luis Abreu, that lived in Venezuela, and he reached out to us around 15, 20 years ago and said he had studied Zarathustra, and he was amazed that based on the Iranian history and the Persian Empire, and also many scholars claiming that Zoroaster influenced philosophy as a whole, and the Greeks. He is known to be in the chronology of philosophers in the academic society, in schools of philosophy, to be the first philosopher that inspired Plato and Socrates. Mr. Dr. Jose Luis Abreu, after the revolution in South America, in his country, he fled to Mexico. Currently, he's a professor in Monterrey University in Mexico, and he developed a course. He teaches management and ethics, and he develops all his courses based on the Zoroastrian philosophy. He's written around 8 or 9 books on Zoroastrianism. They are all available online on Amazon. And the Zoroastrian Assembly initiated a university by the name of Spenta. Spenta in the old Avestan language, which is an Iranian language, means progressive, to progress or to move forward. And he took charge of Spenta University, and he has students, some of his students that he teaches in Monterey University, and some from all over the world that find Spenta University. They refer to him and go to him, and they study Zoroastrianism. He's developed courses, and then they get accredited or they get a certificate, depending on how much they study, on Zoroastrian philosophy. So in terms of the Spanish, again, community, I would say he is the most knowledgeable person and a true Zoroastrian, and he is currently on the board of trustees of an organization that I initiated called the Ahura Mazda Assembly, in English, DBA, known as the Lord of Wisdom. So he is a board of trustee of Lord of Wisdom, that is a nonprofit religious organization established in California and in America. So those are the two activities that occurred in terms of Zoroastrianism in South America in the past 20 years. And one was the Brazil experience, and one is Dr. Jose Luis Abreu, who is still active, and of course he's Spanish, speaks the language, he speaks perfect English, and as I mentioned, he's written books, and he is an active member of our assembly, Lord of Wisdom.
Wasn't that the professor that you were gonna have me speak that day?
That's correct. So if you'd like to have a subsequent discussion with someone, especially in the Spanish language, he would be a good person to do that from our organization for you.
Yes, I would love to have him on the show, because I think it would be very beneficial to Spanish United, to have someone from that community
Sure.
speak with us.
Sure, of course.
And the third and final question is about Hispanophobia. So, according to your tradition, how would that help in dealing and addressing Hispanophobia? As you know, has gotten very bad, with the previous administration, and it's something that's gotten so bad that that is becoming an everyday occurrence. So, like, how would you address it and make that known, and how to combat the issue of Hispanophobia?
I would refer to the Zoroastrian tradition and philosophy. In the Gathas of Zarathustra, which are 17 songs or hymns, there is no mention of race, creed, or anything that is separates man in terms of again, race or creed. What separates man or humans for us is ethical behavior, of whether someone is righteous and ethical, or versus someone who is unethical or a liar. So the whole idea of dualism, ethical dualism, or good and evil, the origins of it is Zoroastrian. We believe that there is good and evil, and within humans, we don't believe there are beings outside of us that manipulate us or control us or play games on us like the devil character or the powerful, omnipotent, omnibenevolent, omniscience deity called God in the sky. We are responsible for our own actions. We are endowed with what's called vohumana, which means good mind. The root of vohumana, the word in English human, is rooted in vohumana. We are humanists. We are responsible whether we make hell on earth or heaven on earth. And anyone who is on the path of Asha, Asha means righteousness or good or truth or ideal. And the Sanskrit word for Asha is Reta. The Avestan, another word that's synonymous, is Artha. And that's the root of the word in English, the word right. The opposite of Asha is Duruj, which is lie or deceit or self-deception. And these two are at conflict within the human mind and within each individual. So anyone who is in the camp of Asha, whether you're Japanese, Chinese, African, Middle Eastern, South American, does not matter. We don't classify humans in terms of racial categories. They are Zoroastrian, whether they know it or they don't. Anyone who is follows the path of Duruj, lie, evil, or destruction is not a Zoroastrian to us, and that can again include all types of human beings on our planet Earth. Therefore, what is important to us is whether, no matter what ethnicity you are, let's say in America, as long as you are a law-abiding citizen, you believe in science, you want to improve the world, you want to make the world a better place, you want to reduce pain and suffering, and bring happiness to others. In his song 8, first verse or stanza, he says, happiness unto those who bring happiness to others. We believe in gender equality. He mentions that in his song number 3, verse number 2. He says, each man and woman is free to choose for himself. The root or the idea of free will is the cornerstone and the foundation of our faith. So you choose to do good or bad, and you must be responsible for your choice and your actions. Therefore, for us, it doesn't matter what the background, the creed or race of an individual is. We want to make sure you're a productive member of the society and you're progressive. You believe in development and reducing pain and suffering to the human community. And we must tolerate others and their indifferences so long as they do not harm others. At the same time, we do believe that every culture, every ethnicity and nation is dear and they have the right to exist. They have the right to keep their culture and tradition. By culture, I mean your religion, your language, your food, your art, your clothing, everything that is defined in the word culture. We need to preserve those cultures. Um, so there's a fine balance of preserving cultures and heritages and traditions, also tolerating them, but making sure that within those different cultures, people are righteous and they don't harm each other within their culture and nation, and also outside that culture and nation. Therefore, we want a harmonious world amongst all nations, traditions, and cultures. We want to tolerate each other. We want to preserve them. At the same time, we want to cooperate and work together to bring joy and happiness to all of us. So we look at the individual and we don't look at a group, and we don't judge a group collectively or a culture or a nation collectively. Each individual is judged based on their own merit and based on their own action. Therefore, if your question is, in America, what do we do? In America, we need to preserve the Spanish culture. Since you are Spanish and you have approached me as a Spanish person, we need to respect the Spanish people and all other minorities or ethnicities, and even the majority. We need to respect the European stock that are here. We need to work together under this nation. We need to cooperate together to make this country and this world a better place. And we don't judge people collectively based on their ethnicity. We need to judge the merit of people as an individual. Um, Therefore, as a Zoroastrian or as an Iranian, my culture teaches me to treat everyone equally, treat everyone with respect, and it is their ethical behavior that matters to me and to my people. If you're a constructive person and not a destructive person, then you are dear to us. And if you're a destructive person, we don't believe in punishment. We believe that we need to educate that person by using sweet tongue and sweet language, and to rehab them and to enlighten them for them to see the truth and to see the light. So if all of us in America can respect our traditions, our culture, preserve them, help each other to preserve them. We don't want to destroy languages. We don't want to destroy religions. The separation of a garden, paradise is a Persian word, where you have different types of flowers. They're all unique. They are all precious, and they need to live in harmony within a garden that makes the variety of the garden beautiful and gives it its strength. And anytime we see weeds within that garden that want to destroy this variety and the unity and the harmony between them, then we need to weed out the weed.
Right. I agree with you, and that's one thing that I promote within Spanish United is that is promoting education. I want Hispanic people to be productive people of society, and also to offset any stigma that people have of Hispanics, because Hispanics are stigmatized as not being good people. And one thing that I promote and encourage within Spanish United, my organization, is education, to learn about your history, learn about your culture, to preserve your language. Because when people don't have a culture or have an identity or have a language, and they're forced to assimilate into the dominant culture, I believe it creates an identity crisis. At the same time, that could lead to moral and social decay. And that's something that unfortunately is very pandemic within the Hispanic community. That's something that I'm trying to change through reforms, through not only through education, but through economic and social reforms. Because if there is educational reforms, there can be social reforms, and those social reforms leads to economic reforms. And I'm basing this off, through my, through my upbringing as a Jew, and also through universal concepts. And I believe that with these concepts that I grew up with, and also through the culture of Spanish people, I think they could be beneficial to the wider Hispanic community. At the same time, they could contribute a lot, because remember, we are the third largest group in the United States, after African Americans. And I believe that we don't receive any representation, nor do we have a voice or advocacy from anywhere. And I feel that my organization, my foundation, can advocate for Hispanic people, not just in terms of preserving one's culture, preserving one's language, but also through civil rights and human rights, social justice, which is something that's very dear to me, and also teaching these concepts within Spanish United members. Like I drafted my own constitution in Spanish United that's called the 10 Principles of Spanish United. One of the second principles of Spanish United is that no Spanish United member is to disrespect or harass or to cause problems with other members, because there cannot be unity between Hispanics and non-Hispanics until there is Hispanic unity within ourselves. And I believe that is very important with unity, because with unity there's peace, and unity there's harmony, and unity there is greater force. And I believe that with my mission, I can bring that peace and harmony to all Hispanic groups, because Hispanic is not monolithic, because people get the misconception that everybody is one group. Hispanic is of different countries, from the Caribbean, from Mexico, from Central America, Europe, South America, even to parts of Africa and Asia. Remember that the Spanish Empire colonized a good portion of the world. So as what you said was Zoroastrianism in Spanish United, uh, there is no tribalism, there is no colorism. One of the mottos that I have in Spanish United, which is the Spanish United credo, is culture over color, meaning that it doesn't matter what your background is, what your economic status is, your educational status, your racial background, etc. If you are Hispanic or half Hispanic, or you speak Spanish, or you want to learn Spanish and you identify as Hispanic, you're welcome to be part of Spanish United.
Yeah, you know, as a last thought, what Cyrus the Great did by preserving cultures and respecting cultures, essentially he taught others how others should also treat Persians. You agree with that?
I agree with you.
What I mean by that, if your organization or the Spanish people um, come out and help other cultures and other minorities, like Cyrus did, and say, hey, they have the right to their culture, they have the right to their identity, then you put those people in a situation to where are going to find it very hard to trespass on yours.
Mm-hmm.
So a method is, instead of me keep going out and saying, look, my identity, my this, my that, you need to be just to me. If you go out and be just to others, promote others, preserve others, you're going to get tenfold coming back to you. The problem I see today, if you're talking about our present divisions in America, I'm an American and I love America and I love the people here. Um, because the view that I think these different ethnicities and different cultures have in America, everyone is beating the drum for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see anyone coming out and passing themselves and fighting for someone else's rights, like Cyrus the Great did.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, I believe the Black people in America have the right to their culture and to their liberty and to their tradition. I think the white people in America, the Caucasians, have that same right. And I think the Hispanic people have the same right. But if I'm trying to say, hey, it's only my right and no one else has right, or only I'm important, or I only point out to myself and my own disgruntled, um, experiences, then we're going to fall short. Let me explain one thing. No one has experienced more injustice and racism in the past 40 years than Iranians in the entire world. They called us terrorists since the Islamic Revolution. In America, in 40 years, there's been nothing but bad media towards us. They've hijacked our traditions. They've hijacked our history. We are never given credit for this. We have been buried in history. We have been discriminated against. And I'll tell you openly, as an Iranian, I moved to England when I was 8. I came to America when I was 21. I have experienced racism by Hispanic people and also Blacks. So the narrative that only whites are racist, it's utter nonsense. We are all responsible within that garden, as I mentioned,
I
you
agree.
understand, right? So there are racist people within Iranians. There are racist people within the Blacks. There's racist people within the Spanish. And then there's the opposite that are not. So it goes back to that individual. We need to protect everyone, all of us. We need to protect others too. We need to speak out for others. And any bad seed or weed within us, we need to educate, you know?
I agree with
That's the
you.
only way we're gonna get along. We need to fight for others, whether minority, whether majority. We need to preserve our culture and ideas. And again, anyone who is short-sighted, unfortunately, something went wrong in that person's life and they have the wrong view, and we need to sit down and talk to them so we can be uh, one community in America that is hand in hand, and we can all live in harmony and in happiness.
I agree with you 100%. Like one of the things that I'm doing that hopefully I could do in November is that I would like to do a joint rally with the Uyghur population. The Uyghurs, I'm not sure if you are aware of, they are a Turkish Muslim minority in China, has been persecuted by the communist Chinese government. I actually had the
Yes.
pleasure of doing a podcast interview with one of the activists here in San Gabriel Valley, and we established a good rapport. And he was a very lovely gentleman. He offered us Uyghur food and Uyghur stuff courtesy of his restaurant, and I'm also willing to partner with them in the near future, and hopefully we can do things together to support one another. Same thing with the Rohingya minority of Muslims that are also being persecuted by the military dictatorship in the country of Myanmar. I also established a rapport with one of the activists here in America as well. So yes, I do agree with you. I agree that yes, it's important to preserve our culture, but it's also important to fight for others. But I also believe that others should also fight for Hispanics, because Hispanics do fight for others. But from what I've noticed is that I don't really see too many other people fighting for us. So I think that's something that should be a two-way street. Like
Yeah,
I help them
absolutely.
and they help us.
That's right. And hopefully by us helping others, you put them in a position to where you change their heart and mind, and they help us,
Hmm.
they help you. And living here in Southern California, I've been here 35 years. I have a lot of Hispanic friends. I was in a rock and roll band, few of them. I'm a musician. I've had players in my band that are Spanish, and my day job, I have a lot of Spanish clients. I have friends, and not just Spanish. I know that's dear to you, it's your culture, and it should be, and I respect that. But also others. I've had black band members, in my band. I have friends from all kinds of life, all walks of life, I should say. Therefore, yeah, hopefully we see the light. We see that we are one species. We need each other to survive on this planet Earth. We have bigger challenges than picking fights with each other and hitting each other over the head. We
Right.
need to join hands and conquer new frontiers as one human race.
I agree with you 100%. And before we go, you didn't introduce what your background is. What is your occupation? I didn't catch it.
Oh, my day job, I'm in real estate. I'm in real estate and real estate finance for 35 years, but I'm also a musician. I write music, I self-produce my music. I have an album on Spotify. I studied engineering in England, although I never worked in that profession. I also studied philosophy at UCLA, and I'm active in my own organization and teaching my students. So I've been blessed, and hopefully we can bring blessings to everyone who is in pain and suffering.
Oh, wow, amazing. So are you a realtor or are you a broker?
I have my own shop or my own business. I'm independent.
Okay, and you say that you're in a band. Are you like the singer? Are you the singer or you're just like one of like
Yeah, I was a singer in one band. There were two singers. There was a gentleman from New York by the name of David Martin. He was known as D-Rock. He was black. We wrote the songs like, Lennon and McCartney. And then he left, moved back to New York. Then I joined another band. But in most of the bands I was involved in, I was the singer, the lead singer, rhythm guitar player, and I composed most of the music.
Oh, nice. So you say you make primarily like heavy metal or just regular rock?
You know, we were a rock, alternative rock, kind of a pop band. I've performed all the clubs in Hollywood, the Roxy, Whiskey, Viper Room, you name it. But in the past 12, 15 years, I've been writing and self-producing spiritual songs, Zoroastrian songs. So if you listen to my album that's on Spotify under the band Pleasure Quest. Those are, I'm paying reverence to our deity and to our principles.
Oh, wow. I would love to check it out. I'm
Yeah, I'll,
definitely
I'll
on
email you
Spotify.
the information. Yeah, I'll email you the information and check it out, and hopefully you like it. And I perform at our Zoroastrian temples, and I play music with the children. I teach children at our centers, so I still do my music. I love music. I think music could be one thing that brings us humans closer together.
Oh, I agree. I definitely agree with you. Music is something that's shared by everybody. It transcends race, culture, language. religion, it unites everyone. So yes, I
Yeah,
would love
yeah,
to
for
hear
sure.
your album. Thank you so
Of
much for
course.
being on the show, Shahrooz. I truly appreciate it. As soon as I'm done, I will send you the link, and we will definitely keep in touch.
You got it. My pleasure, my honor, and thank you for having me. And thank you for capturing my thoughts. And I wish you the best and a lot of success, my friend.
It's a pleasure. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon.
You too. Be well. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.